and blessing you today. Today is January 28th, 2023, and I'm gonna talk about my wedding and what happened until the end of 2020. So where I left off in my last video was probably around 2017 when we had just bought our first house. And this is the first house we both ever had on our own. We always lived in apartments and everything. We always lived in the city. So now we were living in a small town, and we find out pretty quickly that we can't drink the water at our house after we buy it. We have to go to the town hall. We find out that the water is contaminated. It has too much sodium and among other things that was in it. And so we had to deal with the water issue for quite a while. So by now we had to keep getting water tests done for the town, because we had to keep doing it until we could get the water to pass. And I guess it's called like a Title V. And because our water was so contaminated, it was costing us like tons of money to continue to get these water tests every month. So we had went to the town hall and asked them if there was any way we could stop doing that for now. We weren't, because I guess you have to have the water to pass in case you ever want to sell your house, but we just bought it, so we didn't want to really sell it. So we had asked if there was something that we could do to get out of doing all these water tests every month. They were like $200 a month. And so the town had said that we could sign a waiver that we're promising that we wouldn't drink the water because it can cause like heart disease and stuff. And so we had gone through a water supply company, and we got, like you can do in like an office and get water delivered to your house. And that's what we had done. And that we were using that water to cook with and to drink. You could still use the water to take showers and stuff, but you really needed to use the other water in order to drink or cook your food. So we had no problem with that. We did that, and it was saving us money for a while. And then we decided we were going to get married in 2018. And so at first we were like super stressed about well, really, it was me. I was really stressed about trying to appease my mom, because my mom lived in Rhode Island. She was the only person that wasn't willing to travel. So she was trying to get me to do the wedding closer to her. And then she was trying to tell me to invite like all my family and stuff. And I'm like, why? They don't talk to me now. Why would I invite them to my wedding? So it was pretty much like my mom was just causing a bunch of havoc during all of the time when you're supposed to be happy and getting your wedding put together. So anyway, it was causing my husband and I to have arguments, and we decided, so my husband had decided one day, like, why are we even bothering to have, like, we didn't really want something big. And he said to me, like, I'm not marrying your mother, I'm marrying you. So I think we should get married at the waterfall that I showed you in Maine when you came and see me after all those years. And I was like, that's a great idea. So we had decided to do that. We made it a small, intimate wedding. And I had invited my mother, but of course she was mad and she refused to go. So whatever, what are you going to do? I'm not going to force somebody to come to my wedding if they don't want to, even if it is my family. We had a water system that was already in this house by Culligan that wasn't working. We had tried to get them to come and fix it. It wasn't serviced. Like the whole time the lady that sold us the house, she didn't really have it serviced. So it was kind of crappy. We tried to get it serviced. We added in a RO system, but that wasn't working. And then we went to a different system through Eris, and we paid like 20 grand for that, and that wasn't working. That was really just causing us to have more money. We had to keep putting in all these things, and the test results still came back crappy. So I think we were at our wits' end. And I know both me and my husband were praying to God and everything around that time. And the only difference is I was praying to God because I was asking him, like, did we make a mistake with buying the house? Like, can you give me some guidance on what I should do? Should we sell it? What should we do? Should we stay here, try and fix everything? And in the meantime, my husband was praying, but in a totally different way, because he had by now, he grew up Catholic like I did, but he didn't go to church since he was young, and they stopped going, just like my parents. Well, my mom didn't bring me anymore, so then he didn't go either. And then I don't know, for some reason he said that, the more he went to school, the more science was like convincing him that, there really wasn't a God and everything. And he had gone through some stages where he was curious. He wanted to like figure out if it was actually real or not. So when he was praying, he was actually praying and asking if God was real. Like, he was saying to him, if you're real, like, how can I get to know you? Which it's pretty amazing to me because of what happened, like, not too long after that. So I guess there was a day that some lady came to the house, and she was knocking on the door, and my husband answered the door, and she asked if we were interested in studying the Bible. And my husband said, no, we weren't interested. And then, then we were going through all that stuff. And a few weeks later, after we had both been praying to God, a young man came to the door and he knocked on the door. And my husband answered, and he asked him specifically, do you know what God's name is? And my husband said, yeah, God. And he said, can I show you in the scriptures where it shows what God's name is? And so he had opened the scriptures to Psalm 83:18, and it said in there that his name was Jehovah. And my husband was like, wow, that's crazy. And when my husband was explaining the whole thing to me later, I was like, wow, it's like God, you had asked God if he's real and how could he get to know you? And then this kid comes to the door and like specifically answers that question for you, which I thought was pretty amazing. And the kid had given my husband a little book to read. And he said he was going to be back, in a week or so to see like if he was interested in what he read. Well, I ended up taking that book and I read it. And I was like, wow, there's a lot of interesting stuff in here. And so I was like extremely excited about, wanting to study the Bible. And so me and my husband had talked about it. The young man had come back with an older gentleman, and they were looking for my husband. And I had answered the door. At the time I was working at home, and my husband was working, out of the house. And they had asked for my husband, but I said, oh, he's at work. And they said, oh, do you know what God's name is? And I just kind of chuckled, and I said, yeah, it's Jehovah. And they said, oh, may I ask how you know that? And I said, oh, well, you were the ones that said it to my husband, and he gave me that little book you left him, and I read it. And they asked if they could come in and talk to me for a little while, and I let them come in. And they asked me if I would be interested in studying the Bible, and I said I was going to ask my husband, and I'd let them know if they want to come back. I let them know by the next time. And me and my husband had talked about it, and we were talking to each other. And it's funny because my husband and I have always been taught, like, from a young age, that like, and because these people were Jehovah Witnesses, I've always been taught that I shouldn't open the door for Jehovah Witnesses. Every time they would come around when I was younger, my mom would like close the blinds and everything. She would never open the door. When I got my own apartment and they would come around, I would open the door. I would listen to them. I would take the paperwork and I'd read it, because I'm like, what's the big deal? I don't see anything wrong with what they're doing. And it didn't bother me. And they were just trying to be nice. So I always took their stuff, but I never did it when my mom was at the house, because I knew my mom didn't want me to open the door. And I don't really like confrontation, like I told you before. So I just didn't open the door. And so, and my husband was told that they were a cult, when he was younger, which I'm pretty sure my mom told me that too, even though I don't think my mom knew for real if they were. She just listened to what other people were saying. So anyway, here we are. We know that they're Jehovah Witnesses. And I'm talking to my husband. I'm like, what do you think? Do you want to study the Bible with them? And we had both were discussing it, and I was like, we don't really know if they're a cult. We only know what we were told. So why don't we just see what happens? Like, we'll just study the Bible, and if we enjoy it, we'll do it. And if we don't enjoy it and they're kind of weird, we won't stay in it. And he was like, all right. So when the kid came back, he had asked us if we decided, and we said, yeah, that we would be interested in studying the Bible. So he introduced us to an older married couple that were willing to study the Bible with us, one day a week for like 1 or 2 hours. And they were very nice, the people that we studied the Bible with, and I enjoyed learning everything that I was being taught, because as a Catholic, I don't, and a young kid, I don't remember ever having a Bible, ever really going through scriptures the way that they were doing it with us at our house. And so it was really interesting. I learned a lot, and I really enjoyed it. And there was a lot of questions that I had, because of course, growing up Catholic, you hear, oh, okay, well, some people go to heaven, some people go to hell, some people are in purgatory, so you got to pray. And you hear about like all the saints and all the priests and all this and that. And as a young kid, I didn't listen to any of that stuff. And to be honest, I don't even think I was praying when I was younger. And during the Bible studies and everything, they were trying to teach us like how you should pray, and you really should pray and all this stuff in Jesus' name and everything. And I was like going along with it, but I didn't really pray the whole time, because I felt like I wasn't going to do it till I was ready, because I felt like, well, why would I do it? If God can read my mind, he's going to know I'm just doing it to appease these people. That we were studying with. So I just let them always do the prayers. And then eventually, I started to have my own, praying and stuff to God myself. So in the meantime, while I'm studying the Bible, my mom ends up hurting herself, and she ends up breaking her hip. So my mom, again, she lives in Rhode Island. I live probably like an hour and a half away from her. So I decide, all right, well, I don't want her to, because my mom had COPD too, and I didn't want her to go to a rehab, because then she could just get sick from all that. So I said, I'll go live, stay with my mom, help her recover. She can have like a nurse come there, and I'll help her to get healed, because I can work from home. So I just worked at my mom's house. So I did that for a couple months until she was healed up. And then she had a follow-up appointment in probably like a month and a half. And I said, all right, I'm gonna go home. Well, during the time that I was helping her recover, I was still doing my studies over the phone with my husband and the couple. And, my mom could hear my conversation, but she couldn't really hear like the whole conversation. And, like I said, my mom grew up Catholic, and my mom was not happy that I was studying with Jehovah's Witnesses, because remember, she believed they were a cult. But I really liked the couple that we studied with. I didn't think they were anything different than me and my husband. They were just older and had been studying the Bible way longer than me. And so, pretty much the whole time that I would study or whatever, I would notice my mom would like turn down the TV and kind of listen to what I was answering and saying and stuff. And then one of the times we were studying, the husband asked if he could talk to my mom on the phone, because he knew that she hurt herself, and he wanted to pray for her. And he did. He talked to her on the phone, and we ended up all praying for my mom to get better and everything. When I ended up hanging up, she said to me, like, why would he do that? And I said, what do you mean? She goes, why would he pray for me? He doesn't even know me. And I said, well, but he knows me, and he loves God, and he wants you to heal. So of course he's going to pray for you. And I think it kind of changed my mom's like outlook on people doing things for her for nothing, because she was always used to, she had one hand washes the other type of thing. So, after I leave and I go home, I'm there for probably like maybe 6 weeks, and then I have to bring my mom back. And when I go back to get my mom to bring her to the follow-up appointment, I notice like right away, like, holy cow, mom, like you look like you lost like a ton of weight. Why are you so pale? Like, are you feeling all right? And she's like, I'm all right. And so when we get to the ortho doctor, I tell the girl at the front desk, I'm like, something's wrong with my mom. Like she looks terrible. Like she didn't look like this when I left her a month ago. So after they check her out, her hip had healed really good and everything, but she was very weak. And so they sent her to the ER, and they ended up admitting my mom for malnutrition. And then, to make a long story short, all that stuff was going on there, and she ended up, they couldn't put a feeding tube in because she was too malnourished, where it wouldn't have helped her. And so they sent her to a rehab to try to see if the rehab could help her gain some weight. But unfortunately, she only got worse when she went to the rehab. And, I was going back and forth, going to work, going to the rehab and everything. But they had eventually said, like, there's nothing else that we could do for your mom. Like, she doesn't really want to eat. Like, she stopped eating. They were trying to give her protein drinks. She stopped drinking them. She didn't even want food brought into the room. She said the smell made her sick, and she just got to the point where she was like, I don't really care. I don't want to live anymore. And they had asked her if she wanted to go on hospice. She said yes. So that's what happened. We had got it all set up where she was going to come to my house, and hospice had come in and got us all set up, and a bed in my room and stuff, so I could take care of her. And I left my job, and my husband was working part-time, because now this was, you know, he wasn't getting a lot of hours at work. And so we were trying to get everything done. And so I wanted to be able to help my mom all the time. I didn't want to leave her with somebody and be upstairs and like hear them trying to take care of my mom. Yeah, I wouldn't have been able to focus at work. So I ended up leaving work and telling them that I would come back when I was done, helping my mom. And so it was probably from August when she moved in on hospice. And I was starting to freak out, because even though I was still studying the Bible and I was learning about like what happens to people when they die and everything, I was getting like a lot of comfort from the scriptures in the Bible studies, but I was still very stressed because of, bill collectors were calling and the mortgage was due and I wasn't working, and I was trying to get on unemployment, and there was just like so much stuff going, and my husband wasn't working much. But when I started to give it all to God and lean on God and really believe in the scriptures where he tells us that we shouldn't have any anxieties, he wants us to push them all on him and to believe in him, he will take care of us. And I started to do that, and I couldn't believe how much comfort I was getting. One of the particular days that I will never forget was my mom was, here for a while, and she was getting smaller and smaller. Like, she was probably about 85 pounds by now. She was very skinny, very frail. And she couldn't no longer walk, I couldn't get her to the bed, to the bathroom, which wasn't that far, probably like 25 feet from the bed, but she couldn't even walk that far anymore. So we had got her a portable toilet that was right next to the bed, and I would help her out and go to the bathroom, and then I would help her go back to bed. And there was this one particular night that she had to go to the bathroom, and I was trying to get her out. Now, mind you, she was so frail, and I was so scared to hurt her because she was just so frail. And I don't know, like, just talking about this makes me feel disgusted in myself, because I was trying to help her, and it took me about 10 minutes to get her to bend her knees, and she wouldn't bend her knees, and I felt like she was going to end up going to the bathroom all over herself. So I was like kind of snapped at her a little bit, and then I got her to go to the bathroom, cleaned her up, put her back in the bed, And I immediately went to my bathroom and I just started crying. I was bawling, talking to God, asking him to forgive me for yelling at my mom. And I knew she didn't, I knew he knew I didn't mean it. I knew God knew that I didn't mean to snap at her. I think it was just all the stress and the fact that she was so frail. I was scared I was going to hurt her and stuff. But um I don't know, I just was praying to him and asking him to help me through this hard time. I wanted to be able to comfort my mom and give her the the peace that she needed in order to, die comfortably and not have to worry about, I don't know, I just didn't want her to have to worry or anything. And during this time we had talked a lot about we just like made up, talked about a lot of things that had gone on in my childhood, and I forgave her for a lot of stuff. She talked to me a lot about my brother and how she felt about all that situation. And there was a lot of stuff that we went through during the months that she was, on hospice. And I thank God for that every day, because he really let me have closure with a lot of things that I was kind of still resentful, you know, from, and so the particular day that I was in the bathroom and I was crying and asking God to help me, when I came out of the bathroom, I I had looked to my right, and to my right is like the basement door in order to go out to where the cars are. And the glass door, the door was open, so the glass door was there. And I had looked at the glass door, and when I did, I just started to cry because, and I'll put a picture here of what was there. And when I saw this, I just knew God was telling me that everything was going to be okay, and that I didn't have to worry about it anymore. And it's true. I had like such a peace come over me, and I was able to enjoy the rest of the time I had with my mom. And it probably, I'd say later that week is when she passed away in her sleep. My dad had passed away unexpectedly of a heart attack, which, you know, it's so weird to look back at these things now and know that I didn't really have a relationship with God when my brother and my grandmother died, and I could see the difference from having that relationship with him now, and the fact that having a relationship with him now, and my mom and my dad dying not too far apart from each other, I was totally different person. And I was able to get through it without stress, or like just thinking about it all the time. Like, when I think about my mom now, I just know that she's sleeping, and she doesn't have to worry about nothing. And I just believe what the Bible says about death, and it gives me comfort to know that she's fine. So now I'm going to move forward and talk about, the end, because my mom had passed away in November of 2019. And, you know, 2019, 2020, everyone knows, what happened in the world then, which the pandemic. And then, I had just went back to work after my mom had passed away. And then I had gotten laid off in March of 2022. And so did my husband. And we were back at worrying about, oh, geez, what about the mortgage and the bills, and all that stuff was starting to come back. But we were still studying the Bible. And during my studies, I had decided I was going to get baptized, because I really, truly had found like the best relationship that I could find with God, my own personal relationship. And it was just wonderful. And I got baptized. And, you know, I don't know, I knew that I've always knew there was a God, and I always believed there was a God, but just knowing that, I feel like there's a relationship that I have with him. I am able to talk to him at any time. He listens to me all the time. He gives me the scriptures. He brings scriptures to my memory when I need them. And like if I'm angry or hurt or anxious or depressed or anything, he'll bring scriptures to my mind and I'll read them, and then I'll completely have peace right away and comfort. And then it's just a wonderful relationship that I have. And I do thank, I'm very grateful for the people that help study the Bible with me. So during this whole shutdown, now I'm getting more and more into the scriptures and studying and doing my own research. And now I'm starting to do personal Bible study with myself and wanting to learn more and more about God and what does he really want us to do. Now I'm getting into the meat of like his principles and standards, and how can I meet these, and how can I make God, happy, and for myself, like not to worry about what other people are doing. Everyone has their own relationship and their own way with God, or maybe not, they might not, but I'm talking about me. And so I don't know, it was great because all the stuff that was happening during the pandemic, people were getting, help with the mortgage, and the student loans were being, put on hold, and just everything that was going on. And we were getting, we were able to like focus on our debt and just get so much stuff like taken care of during the pandemic and kind of like after that. And I'm very grateful. My oldest son, was learning about a new way to budget, and he wanted me to learn this way of budgeting because I had done my mom taught me my budgeting when I was younger, and I've taught the kids how to do it. But he was like, let's try this new way, and I'm so glad that I was open minded to try it, and because it just works so well. And now, my son is creating his own website to help other people with that, which is amazing. And that's almost done. I'm excited to know that there's like a lot of things that we're all doing in the family because of our connection with God now. And so I'm gonna stop the video here today. And I pray that you all have a blessed day, and I will see you on the next video.